Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another week here at Catholic Table Talk Podcast. As you can see, this is not the same studio backdrop in my home studio. We are on location again in the basement of Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Staples, Minnesota. Beautiful church. As a part of Mary's ACC, centrally located in central Minnesota in the St Cloud Diocese. So want to make sure if you're in town, stop by Sacred Heart Church and come to Mass. It's again, it's a beautiful church. This week we have Jay Tyrell on the show, and he's going to talk about the Mary's ACC. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're not from along Mary's ACC, you're probably like, Billy, William, Bill, why does it matter to me? Why does it pertain to me? If I live in Texas, why does Mary's ACC pertain to me? Well, maybe you have an ACC back home where you live. Maybe some of the things that Jay's going to talk about might influence you to do those type of things at your home parish. So again, this is about the ACC around Jay and I, but this isn't just for Mary's ACC. This is for everyone listening. You can get great content and great ideas what you should do at your parish and your ACC if you're not doing these things already. So sit tight. Jay's been on the show before and well-said speaker, well-devout Catholic. His son is in the seminary, which we'll hopefully get to that in later on in the show. And with that being said, let's welcome back to the show for his second time on the show, Jay Tyrell. And Jay, thank you again for just joining us at Catholic Table Talk.
Thanks for having me back, Billy.
Yeah, so again, I kind of want to start there, is the Mary's ACC. Of course, anyone who's listening to this, who's a part of Mary's ACC, knows what's happening, but I think I might have said, or I think you have more insights on stuff what is happening in Mary's ACC. And for those who are not familiar with an ACC or just Mary's ACC in general, what's happening in our area Catholic community?
Got it. I'll do my best to bring you up to speed. Well, ACC stands for Area Catholic Community, and we're a bit unique and special because we have 8 churches in our area Catholic community run by Father Aaron Kuhn and then parochial vicar Father Gabriel. And they put that into place about 3 years or so ago. And we weren't sure how it was going to go. 2 priests handling 8 masses per week, and it's a lot of pressure on those guys, but it's gone really well. What it's done is I have connected with a lot of other people in a lot of other churches that I didn't normally connect with. I know people in Bertha at St. Joseph's. I know people in Bluffton at John the Baptist. I know people in Wadena at St. Anne's that I didn't connect with up until about 3 years or so ago. And that's been pretty neat. It's worked quite well. Father Aaron Kuhn has done a wonderful job of managing the business of running a church, putting the right people in the right places. And it's been good. It's been really good. The downside is we don't get to see our priests a whole lot outside of Mass times. Wow. We've had to cut back on daily Mass and some of those types of things. Basically, right now, Monday through Friday, there is a 8:30 a.m. Mass. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are at St. Anne's, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are here at Sacred Heart. So some of the smaller churches in the rural areas lost their daily Mass, which
is sad.
Yeah, it is sad, but hopefully that's a temporary problem. So, yeah. The other thing we got coming up that's going to change is Father Gabriel is being transferred down to Long Prairie, and in his place will be Father Rick will be coming. I don't know Father Rick that well. I was on a Steubenville conference with Father Rick, but I don't know him that well, but we're excited to have him come in, and hopefully he's an energetic guy that can handle 4 masses every weekend and weddings and funerals and everything else a priest has to do, because I know yes, they do have quite a schedule, but we're excited to have him very much so.
Yeah. And Father Gabriel, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to Boisville, correct?
He's going to be going to Long Prairie.
Long Prairie.
Which and there's a need for him down there. He speaks Spanish fluently. They have a large Hispanic population down there, and his gifts are better suited for that area. We are sad to see him go. I know he's sad about leaving, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to trust the authority of the church and be obedient. And whoever we get next for our priest, well, it's Father Rick now. We do know that. We didn't for a while. We'll welcome him with open arms.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I mean, I think too, well, we're recording this on Monday, folks, and yesterday Father Gabriel was his last mass celebrating here at Sacred Heart. And I remember him saying yesterday's homily that when Forrest was assigned here, he's like, is there a Spanish community up here? No. And he's like, well, I'm like, okay. So I understand, like you said, they have a need for him down there, which the priests are called where people need them.
Right.
So
right.
That's
You also seen Father Gabriel get quite emotional
absolutely
during his homily, and you forget sometimes what these men that have devoted their lives to the church are asked to do. But ultimately, you have to trust in the authority of the bishop. He's making the right decision, and be obedient to the church. A lot of priests will tell you that's one of the toughest parts of taking their vows, is they have to be obedient to the church. But like I said, I'm 52 years old. I told my youth group that I've seen a lot of good priests come here, and then when they announce they're leaving, we're all kind of heartbroken. Oh my gosh, there'll never be another Father Peter, another Father Joe, or another Father Gabriel, or another Father Ron. But the church knows what it's doing, and the next priest is always the right priest at that time at that church. And it's honestly how I feel.
Yeah. And I would say one thing to that quote too. Actually, my brother Sam and I were talking about this the other day too. I'll flip the camera and make sure it's on me. So, if Father Gabriel, if you're listening to this, I do have a confession to make. Is that, and a little story for you, Jay, is when Father Gabriel was forced assigned his first mass ever at St. Michael's. Um, Sam and I, we always used to serve mass. But we were assigned to serve that night. So we were kind of like, okay, what's this guy going to look like? How is he going to do? And then 5 minutes to, they call us up to serve. And we're like, oh boy, what's going to happen? We didn't have like, what does he want us to do? But it was a very, very chill. He was so chill. He's so welcoming. And again, we were sad to see Father Joe leave. But again, you welcome new priests with open arms. And again, now Father Gabriel's leaving and the rotation begins again. But so Father Gabriel, I mean, at first, Sam and I were a little, like, how is he going to do? Oh, wait, we have to serve Mass with him first, so we can't watch other soldiers serve Mass with him first. But that's the first Mass was a very true blessing, and grateful to have welcomed you, one of the first welcome guests of St. Michael's. So yeah. So with that being said, stewardship committee, and I don't think a lot of people, Jay, really know what stewardship's about, or maybe they do. It's just they don't really talk about it that often. So what is the stewardship committee? How can others promote it? And I mean, just what is the Mary's ACC stewardship committee doing as of today?
Okay. Well, I was asked here about a month or so ago to join the stewardship committee, and the first thing I thought is, they want us to give more money. People always think of money the first thing when they think of the stewardship committee. I couldn't have been more wrong. Nick Trout sits on our ACC stewardship committee. He is kind of the head of the stewardship committee,
Okay.
and he's the right guy for that position. And there's a group of us. Actually, we'll be meeting tonight at 5:30. Stewardship is your time, your talent, and your treasure. And basically, this all comes down through Father Aaron. What it amounts to is getting more organized, looking at the people that attend church and kind of cultivating their talents and figuring out where we can plug them in, getting them hooked up with the right people. We filled out some stewardship cards here a couple years or so ago. We're now taking that information and processing that and figuring out, example would be like, you're a new member at this church. You're interested in becoming an usher. All right. Who do you call? How do you find out the mass times? How do you get on the list of what's needed? You're interested in helping out preparing meals for the funerals. Who's in charge of that? Who do you call? Basically putting out a booklet that's got all this information in it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've been serving in the stewardship committee now for about 2 months. There is no mention of giving money. Okay. Ultimately, where this goes is people are more and more plugged in. The money piece kind of comes along automatically. There are examples of stewardship committees around the country that the kids don't have to do any fundraising for the youth events. The Catholic school has free tuition because there's enough money there to pay the teachers and pay the kids' tuition. The thinking is if we focus on the time and the talent, the treasure, the money piece will come later because we're using our resources a little wiser.
Okay.
And like I said, I've been to a couple of meetings. I'm still kind of a baby at learning what this is all about. I'm pretty excited about it because it's been needed for quite a while. You know a little bit about construction. You want to get on a building maintenance committee for the churches. Who do you call? Who's your connection? Who's your contact? All right, just getting organized. And there will be a booklet coming out. We're actually in the process of putting it together of who the key people are to contact for this. And we're pretty excited about it. So when you see the stewardship cards come out, which they will be again, make sure you look at them, pray about them, think about them, and then check the boxes, maybe whichever one you're kind of feeling called to be a part of. Or if you really don't have time to join anything else, you're busy raising kids or something,
Sure.
check the box that you're going to pray for us. We always need that too. And so yeah, you'll be seeing and hearing more and more about the stewardship committee coming.
And you mean just for people who are maybe not familiar with youth events, so like your Studentville trips, your Eucharistic revival stuff trips, all that would be paid for by the stewardship committee, if I'm following you correctly.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody knows there's plenty of money out there
Yeah.
to support the church and whatnot. We just have to help people to prioritize and understand that when you give money to the church, there's no better place you could be giving your dollars to. We don't ever want a kid to think, I'm not going to go on this trip because I can't afford it or my parents can't afford it or whatever. We want to make sure that there's plenty of money there. And you think, well, gosh, we're in a small town. Staples has got 2,000 people. We got an old church. It takes a lot of maintenance. There are examples around the country of smaller towns, rural areas that have put together a stewardship committee. It's about a 3 to 5 year plan, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So this doesn't just happen. We're about 1.5 years into it, but from what I can tell, we weren't overly organized in the beginning. I just came on board. We're going to be doing a lot better job. Like I said, a lot of that falls under the leadership of Nick Trout. So if you see him, thank him. He's put a lot of work and effort into this, and I think we're gonna see some results of this. And then ultimately, priority would be make sure all the youth events are paid for. Make sure any kid that wants to go to a Steubenville or any kind of youth conference or any child that wants to go to Sacred Heart, make sure there's money there for that. The next piece would be a lot of the churches in our 8-church ACC are kind of old and they need some maintenance. We got to put some money into our churches. Having a capital fundraising campaign is very expensive. We don't want to do that unless we absolutely have to. And so we're going to try to take care of those needs within the stewardship campaign as well. And that's just a first of many things, all the way from, like I said, funeral meals to mass servers to ushers at church. Make sure all those pieces are covered, our bases are covered and well organized.
Sure. Got it.
So,
Well, I mean, well said, because just like how many people say, I want to send my kids to Catholic school, but it's too expensive. I want to send my kids, I want to help fix the church, but it's too expensive for us right now. I mean, again, if, like you say, if you can't afford it, just check that box about prayer, pray about it. It's not something not to go, I should say, it's something that you shouldn't ignore. If it comes in the mail, it's not, oh, that's in the garbage, I'm not even going to look at it. No, really take time to just to think and pray on it, because I mean, again, like you said, there's a ton of great examples around the country from little towns who have beautiful churches and can send the kids to school, and so definitely look out for that booklet as well. And again, if if you're not doing this in your own area Catholic community, folks, something good to really start doing. Um, I will just throw this question in there for you, Jay. Because we're doing pretty good on time so far. Is that what has been one eye-opening experience that you have seen being on, in the stewardship committee?
Well, like I said, eye-opening for me was the first thing I thought is this is going to be a fundraising thing. This is going to be about making money and bringing more money to the church. That's not at all what the focus is. The focus is to understand if your time, your talent, and your treasure are all gifts from God, let's give back to Him first and reprioritizing. And actually, if you're interested, there's a couple pretty good YouTube videos out there you can watch on stewardship and how stewardship is implemented properly in churches. And a huge part of it is making sure the right people are in charge of the committees, and then making sure that you help them where they need help and holding them accountable to make sure someone's interested in becoming an usher. Make sure that new person, if they check the box and want to become an usher, make sure that phone call happens to reach out to them.
Gotcha.
Okay. Because I have heard, maybe you've heard too, that people said, yeah, I checked the box in that card, but nobody contacted me. It's like, man, there's a wasted opportunity there. That could have been your superstar as far as reaching out to people and making sure people know about upcoming events. Something as simple as Father Gabriel's going away party.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make that stuff happen. A lot of it involves food, and I'm not a cook.
Right.
So I really appreciate people that have that talent are willing to step up, but they need to be contacted and need to be connected with to make sure they know times and dates and things like that. That's all part of the stewardship committee. Like I said, I've been to several meetings. I've researched it. I'm reading a book currently on stewardship. It has not talked about asking for donations yet. That will be part of it at some point, because if you believe all our money comes from God, it's His in the first place, it's just ours to manage, then that shouldn't bother you. It shouldn't scare you off.
Right.
And like I said, your time and your treasure. And listen, if you got a family full of little kids and you are strapped for time, we understand. Pray for us. Pray for the church. Pray for the committee. Pray it has success. All that good stuff. But it's been pretty exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. And I mean, I'm glad that you spoke about that again. It's not asking for donations, so I'm glad that you retouched that again. So now we're moving on to the local whale station here in the area, KS Whale that carries Revelet Whale. And we have a tower by Vaughndale that we need to keep up to date and up to speed. I know we talked about it last time you were on the show, but any new updates on the whale station and Revelet Whale?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So Relevant Radio is a National Catholic Talk radio program. People don't realize Relevant Radio is the 7th largest radio network in the country. It is huge. It broadcasts in 220 major markets across the country. We're in the top 100 markets.
Okay.
All right. It is huge. Father Rocky, who's chairman and CEO of Relevant Radio, wants to make us the largest radio network in the country. And if you look at what they've done in the last 24 years, it started back out in 2020. It's picking up speed. It's gaining momentum. I believe we'll be there in the next few years pretty easily because it's growing that fast. Okay.
Yeah.
So Relevant Radio owns most of the radio stations across the country. We're unique and special here in St. Cloud because KS down in St. Cloud, we actually own that station. We're what they call an affiliate. I would say about 80%, maybe, 80% of the programming that you hear on your Relevant Radio station, by the way, it's 1070 AM or 101.3 FM. About 80% of what they broadcast is what Relevant Radio puts out, and then they rebroadcast the signal when it comes in. And we have our own tower that we bought here about 5 or 6 years ago, just east of Verndale, about 2.5 miles. Okay. So when you're listening to Relevant Radio and suddenly you hear Father Aaron come on talking, that is made possible through KES Radio, our local affiliate. When you hear Father Mike Schmitz on the radio, that is made possible by KES Radio. Okay. And then the daily mass, you'll hear Father Doug on there. That's made possible by KS. People across the country don't hear that. So they try to bring it local and yeah, just make it feel a little more personal. And I think I mentioned this the last time I was on your program. Ironically, about the same time our ACC was formed, our 8-church cluster, is about the same time that we bought that tower. That tower almost perfectly covers our 8-church cluster. It's kind of a miracle how it all worked out. And those two things came together about the same time. And we had a lot of problems in the beginning. I think we got it pretty well worked out. It's pretty reliable. Like I said, AM 1070 and 101.3 FM. You can also download the app and listen to KS online. A lot of people choose to do that. Like I said, I encourage you to listen to the local programming. You can download the Relevant Radio app, but you're not going to hear Father Michael Schmitz. You will not hear Father Aaron. You got to download the KS app. And then, yeah, so it's been good.
And I know I listened to it coming back from work after work on the second shift, listening to it. And again, I don't listen to KS that much just because of my time frame. But again, like maybe I should get listening online, like you mentioned, because it's a great thing to do if you're sitting at your desk or anything. It's a great thing to have on the background. And yeah, I mean, I've heard Father Aaron before, and I've heard about Father Mike coming on. So, I mean, we have that unique opportunity to support local right here in the diocese. You got to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that, so one of my goals is I'm currently a parish ambassador for Sacred Heart Church here in Staples for Relevant Radio. And basically any promotional stuff or programming changes, they send me out some information. You'll be seeing some banners and stuff hung up around the area just to keep promoting Relevant Radio. I'm looking for one parish ambassador in each of the 8 churches in our ACC. Actually, there'd be 7 because I cover this one. So if you're interested at all in becoming a parish ambassador, please reach out to me or just go on the Relevant Radio website and you can sign up there. What does this involve? They say it involves about an hour a month, maybe 2 hours a month at the most.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. They have, I think it's a biannual, every 6 months, they have a webinar, which is very interesting. That's where I got a lot of my information here. I just rattled off. So I'm looking for a parish ambassador in each of the churches in our ACC. And then I've been in sales for 22 years. I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy sharing information. I'm kind of volunteering as a sales rep for KS in this area. They cannot justify having a sales rep on the payroll to go out there and sell. It's not necessarily radio advertising. It's more like if you think of NPR, you'd be underwriting programming and kind of spreading the word out there about the differences between Relevant Radio and KS and why there is a difference and what value KS radio has to us over just rebroadcasting Relevant Radio 100% of the time. And so I'm working at that as well. I will have a booth at the Wadena County Fair coming up. It's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday coming up June 20th through the 23rd. I do have a work conflict on Thursday. I'll be there Thursday evening, and then I'll be there Friday afternoon, and then, of course, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. So please come up to the booth, say hi, tell me what you love about Catholic Talk Radio, tell you any improvements we could possibly make. We want to know. For what it's worth, KS did a survey here in our area. No, excuse me. KS did a survey in their listening area here some time ago, and I got the result of that survey. Our listening audience up here, they got a really good response from this area, much larger than you would typically get from a radio listening area. So our area up here, they're interested, they're engaged, and they got back to us with some information, what programs they like and whatnot. So for those of you that took the KS radio survey, thank you. We're taking information, we're processing it, and try to keep bringing you good programming. So.
And that's great. I mean, if you think about it, for those people who don't know the area, it's a pretty rural area. This is not, I mean, yeah, very rural. My bad. So it's not like you go into a big city or anything and you say, okay, we got this side of the suburbs is listening. Okay, we got more Catholic people over here than over here. It's a big area. It's a very rural area. You could be listening to country music, you could be listening to rock and roll, anything. But people are tuning into Catholic talk radio. I guess I'm gonna throw another crowbar at you, Jay. It's just for you being like the voluntary sales rep and promoting KS Relevant Radio. What does that speak to you about the area and people tuning into Catholic Talk Radio?
Well, it's interesting. If you go to the Relevant Radio website and pull up the map of all the tower locations across the country, bottom line, 75 to 80% of the population of the United States lives on the East Coast or the West Coast. Sometimes we kind of get forgotten about. For Relevant Radio to come out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and become the 7th largest radio network in a few short years, to me, that's pretty exciting. I want to be part of something bigger than myself. When I was out in Green Bay and I met Father Rocky here about a year and a half or so ago, he knew about KS Radio.
Really?
Yep, he knew that we were unique and special in what we were doing and was fully supportive. I don't know. I'm kind of one of those guys. I kind of get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
But Relevant Radio, people are like, why are you so passionate about this? I've always liked talk radio. Different radio programs and this and that. I think over the last few years, it got pretty secular where basically I'm right and you're wrong. And if you don't think like I do, then I don't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
I did notice that change about 10 years or so ago. And I was looking for something different to listen to when I heard about Relevant Radio at the time. KS just came online. And then, I was working with it. And then a couple years ago, I had some pretty significant changes in my life. And they talk about cell phones. People use them to stay connected and feeling more connected. And you know all the stats. The more people are on their phones, the more they feel disconnected and lonely. Loneliness is like at an all-time high in the country. So is depression. Relevant Radio can be a real friend. I tell people, when you're feeling down, we all have ups and downs in our lives. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe you found out someone close to you's got cancer. Maybe you got a sick child. Life is tough. Mm-hmm. And when you're having a bad day, at 3:00 in the afternoon, turn into KS Radio and listen to the Divine Mercy Chaplet. You don't have to do anything but sit there and listen to the Divine Mercy Chaplet with Drew Mariani. You will feel better in a very short period of time. It is a beautiful prayer how they do it. You can tune into Rosary Across America with Father Rocky at 7 p.m. You can pray along with it. You don't have to. You can just sit there and listen. You will feel better. If you want to feel better, you will feel better at the end of the Rosary Across America with Father Rocky. And then keep the radio on, because at 7:30, you're going to listen to the daily mass with Father Doug or Father Rocky or Father J.C. Duncan. And you probably know these guys. And the beauty of listening to the mass by someone you know, I call both those guys my friends. There's just something to it. And I know times where I've kind of been in a dark spot and tuned in. I just feel better after listening. You feel like you've got a connection with those people. Mm-hmm. And it's helped me through some pretty tough times. And that's why I'm passionate about it. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not conservative, it's not liberal. It really tries to look at all the issues through the eyes of the Catholic Church. I always tell people, I say, I've been on the face of this earth 52 years. The Catholic Church has been on the face of this earth for about 2,000 years. Right. I kind of want to know their opinion on these situations, not just my opinion. All right. And a bit of that's just being obedient to the teachings of the church. And but that's a little bit of my personal story, kind of why I'm so passionate about it. And then I had a career change a while back. It allowed me to have some more free time in my schedule. And like I said, I kind of told the good Lord, if he was willing to give this career change to me and make it go well, that I would donate some time back to KS. And is it work? I don't know. Anything you enjoy. Not work. Yeah, it's not really work. It's just fun to have good, solid conversations with people about when they say, "Oh, did you listen to such and such or so and so?" On the radio. And next time I see Father Doug, say, hey, I enjoyed your mass, and bring up something about his homily, and yeah, it's just good. It's just a neat thing we have right in our backyard, and we own it.
Right.
It's ours. It's ours. It's not like some other radio station that is out there somewhere where they I shouldn't say they don't care if you listen or not, but our local station, we own it, and we have to support it and keep it going to keep it on the air, because if we ever lost it, it'd be a tragedy.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's not speaking just for you or me, that's speaking for the whole area, because like you said, the results are in, people are tuning in. And just if I may, real quick too, just talking about the Revelet Whale and the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Now, I have not gone through probably as some dark areas or down times in my life as maybe you or other people have listening, but just listening to Divine Mercy Chaplet when I was doing college. I was in at my grandparents' house doing a 10-hour workday on homework. You get kind of exhausted by 3 o'clock, but you take a half an hour, you go on, and like you said, you sit there and you listen, you can pray, but by the end of it, you're feeling really good. No matter what your test score you got back at the start of the day, no matter what happened, from not coming starting up to 3 o'clock, is you feel better. So I can testify to that, as well as just listening to Catholic Talk Radio. It really calms you down. It really kind of clears your mind. It really makes you think. And like a lot of people have said, the Catholic Church and Catholic Talk Radio, it's white versus wrong. It's not left versus right. And I think that's totally correct. Like you said, the Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 plus years. You get their opinion. So totally agree. So yeah, moving on, Jay, and we kind of want to get through everything because it's just so really good. And you just flow well along as well. Is Jack, your son, is in the seminary, and just saw him in church again yesterday. How is he doing? What year is he in? And just a little bit about him being in the seminary.
Got it. So, well, for those who don't know, I do have 4 children. Jack's got 2 older brothers, Nolan and Braden, who both got married last year. And one of them is expecting a little girl here in a month or two. And Braden and his wife, Kelsey, made me a grandpa here about a month or so ago. So our family's changing. And Jack is my number 3 son. And then I have my daughter, Lily, who's now a senior in high school. So the seminary is interesting. I didn't know a lot about the seminary and how that whole process works, but for those of you who don't know, on the campus of St. Thomas down in St. Paul, St. John's Vianney Seminary is basically like, I think of it like a glorified dorm room on campus. And they actually rent space from the St. Thomas campus, or they have a lease, whatever, but it's basically a fancy dorm building there on campus where all the seminarians live. So Jack was there for 4 years, and basically, I guess I'm not a huge college guy, but he got his bachelor's degree there. Basically, graduated from St. Thomas. When you graduate from St. John's Vianney, you also graduate from St. Thomas. So right now he's in between. Next year, or excuse me, this fall he'll be at St. Paul's, which is kind of the theology school, or like the minor seminary and the major seminary. St. Paul's is going to be the major seminary. Jack actually has a candidacy mass tomorrow evening down in Albany, where basically the diocese says, here's our candidate to go on to become a Catholic priest, and we think he's the right guy for the job. And basically that's the diocese getting behind him. So that'll be kind of exciting. Oh, yeah. So there's Jack, and then there's one other candidate down there. The other candidate is going to go study over in Rome for 4 years. Jack's going to stay here because Jack was already in Rome, but that other candidate's going to be going over to Rome. But I like to think of the first 4 years of seminary, from what I could tell, is kind of like a spiritual boot camp for the boys.
Okay.
And about a third to a half of the boys discern out. It's not for them, and they're okay with that. That's not a negative statistic. People look at that and go, oh my gosh. No. They're not trying to turn your son into a priest. They're trying to help him discern if this is for him or not. Sometimes the boys discern out on their own. Sometimes their spiritual director will say, you know what? you should maybe think about doing something else. That does happen. And those guys have my sympathy. They're really trying to figure out what God wants them to do with their life. And if you've looked yourself in the mirror and been very honest with yourself, that can be very, very challenging to do that, and a little bit scary at times. And you're like, did you forget about me? We've all had that feeling. And these boys are down there making their best effort to figure this out. And but me personally, I just love when Jack is home, and sometimes he brings some seminarian buddies with him, and we just have a great discussion. And I'm telling you, and it's not just because my son is in seminary and it's my son, the future church is in really good hands. These guys, their formation down there, the future priests that are coming up, our church has never been in a better spot. We just gotta wait a little bit to get through our current priest shortage. So hopefully we can get back to one priest at every church. That would be ideal. And
delayed gratification.
yeah, delayed gratification. It's we're kind of going through a struggle now. We'll be better when we come out of this. We'll be in a better spot. The stewardship committee and all that. We're just getting ourselves. I don't want to say we got a little lazy, maybe got a little off track, but I think we're on the right track now with our priest, their discernment process, getting the message out about the church's teachings on this stuff, stewardship committee, what's expected of laity. There's a lot more to it than just show up for Sunday mass and then leave. And you got to measure where you're at. If you have more to give, then please do give. But some people, that's all they can do. I understand your job's to pray for the rest of the people, as well as our priests. But yeah.
Okay. Very good. Just another quick couple of things that I've learned and I've seen that many people have, because when you see like, I know in some areas like a dropout rate, you see a lot in colleges, you're like, oh, that's bad. A lot of people are dropping out, they're like going to school there. Not the case of seminary, is they're not being called to be the priest. So like you said, it's not a bad thing. It's just destroying what God has planned for you. And a lot of people who have come out of seminary who have not become priests, they're like, it's like the best education I have ever received. So I highly recommend it, they said, for anyone who's even considering destroying priesthood, because even if you don't become a priest, the education and just learning more about the faith is just so enriching that do it. So that, and then also you mentioned Jack in Rome, and you visited Jack in Rome. Is that correct? You want to talk a little bit about that experience? Because I know a lot of people who've gone to Rome, they have a lot about it to say when they get back.
Yeah, so the trip to Rome, it was kind of spontaneous. It was the week after Easter last year, and went over to Rome for 5 days. Jack was staying at something called the Irish College over there, which is basically a Catholic college right there. And then we got this. It's called Irish because it kind of the Church of in Ireland owns it. I think I got that right. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, basically they had an extra dorm room I stayed in. Literally, I could poke my head out the window and look down the street this way, and there's the Colosseum, and I could look down the street this way, and there's St. John's Lateran. I mean, we were right in the middle of Rome. Everyone should have Rome on their bucket list to go see. Just standing there and looking at these buildings and trying to take in the largeness of the Catholic Church and its roots. People don't realize Rome is the size of Chicago. It's huge. All right. Now, where the church is concentrated, kind of right around the Vatican and whatnot. Yeah, there's parts of it. It's an old, dirty city. I mean, I live in Staples, Minnesota, a town of 2,000 people. So the busyness and the sounds and all the noise there and scooters everywhere. That was a bit of an adjustment, but there was a couple of times, like when I got up to St. Peter's, I just stood in front of the building and looked at it, and to go, I'm a cradle Catholic. I grew up here in Staples, Minnesota. I'm in the basement of the church that I was baptized in, and now I'm in Rome. 5,000 miles away, looking at the church, and St. Peter's remains are buried just under the high altar, and he was buddies with Christ, and it just, there was quite a few times I just had to stop and go, whoa, this is wild.
Yeah, your heart was racing a bit.
Yeah. And honestly, I was quite emotional. I kind of caught myself off guard. At one point, Jack was like, Dad, come on, we got to go or we're going to miss our bus. I'm like, I'll miss the bus. I need a few minutes here,
Right.
And just a couple other things. There's some steps over there. There's a church over there called the Santa Scala, and it's got 5 sets of steps in it. And they're long steps. They're like 28 steps. And the center set of steps is the steps that Christ climbed when he went to talk to Pontius Pilate.
Okay.
And how do we know that those are the steps? Because Constantine's mother, St. Helen, went to the Holy Land and brought them back. And the tradition is you climb those steps on your knees. Nobody walks up those steps. You climb the steps on your knees. And I did that one morning at about 7 a.m. And that was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in my life, was climbing those steps on my knees. The steps are marble, and they've had to cover them because the marble is so wore out. The marble is wore down like 3 and 4 inches in places because millions and millions of people have climbed those steps over the century. I mean, St. Helen brought these things back in the 4th century, 400 years after Christ. Those steps have been there for like 1,600 years. And here's me from Staples, Minnesota, climbing these steps, thinking my problems are really a big deal, and there's some neat things over there to see. And, just people don't realize there's something like 850 Catholic churches in Rome. There's a Catholic church around every corner, and each one you go into, you're like, oh my gosh, there could never be one more beautiful than this. And then you go to the next one, and there could never be one more beautiful. And it's just, I was like art overwhelmed when I left. And there was other people there. There was a lot of people. 16,000 people a day go through St. Peter's. St. Peter's, yeah. And I would say probably half of them are there for the artwork. And I feel a little bad for those people because they're missing the beauty behind the artwork. When they look at the Pieta, which is where Mary's holding Jesus, who's dead, when they look at the Pieta, they're looking at a piece of artwork, which is beautiful. But when I'm looking at the Pieta, I'm thinking about the Stations of the Cross and the Mass and the sacrifice and what Mary must have been through in her life, and the fact that she's a virgin and she had one son, and just, all that stuff. If you're going to go to Rome, make sure you brush up on your church history. It just makes it come alive. It was every bit what I expected and then some.
Okay. So you're looking more at the backstory,
right,
instead of just looking at, oh, that's such a nice painting. You're looking more of the backstory instead of
oh
the
yeah,
history.
yeah.
That's what you're thinking about, how people are missing out.
Oh yeah, the church, the Santa Scala, where those steps are, that Jesus climbed to see Constantine, at the top of those steps, you go around a corner, and there is a replica of the Shroud of Turin, which is the burial cloth that Jesus was buried in. I had no idea that cloth was 14 feet long. It's huge. All right. Was Jesus a big guy? No, he was average size, but it was folded in 2. So about 7 feet long, folded in 2. And then I did some research on it, and they figure when Jesus ascended into heaven, when he, I'm going to use the wrong words here, but when he vanished or when he left this earth, he was probably in an upright position, not laying down. And why do they think that? Because he probably had long hair, and you can see his hair in the cloth. Well, you think about it, if you were laying down, you wouldn't see his hair because gravity'd pull it down away from the cloth, but they think he was probably in an upright position.
Okay.
And there's been some pretty serious studies on that to say, yeah, that's probably how it happened. But so the real Shroud of Turin is owned by a family. So that we really don't have access to that. It's owned by some wealthy family. I forget where it's at, in Italy or somewhere over there. But this is a replica, a very accurate replica. It was just neat to stand there and actually look at what maybe Jesus probably looked like laying in the tomb and what the cloth looked like over him. And it's like, wow. And then, so you're standing there looking at that, and then you look out the door and there's St. Peter's down the street, and you're going, there's just so much here. It's like you just got to grab your ears and stretch your brain to take it all in. And then we do the mass on Sunday in this church back in Staples, Minnesota, and that's our connection back to the Vatican. It's just beautiful how it all comes together. I mean, I can see how people get into church history and just become engrossing because there's so much there.
Absolutely.
And we can actually see and touch this stuff and learn about it. And it's actually, this isn't fairy tales and this isn't Disney movies, and we can actually go back and see and prove this stuff. And I get pretty pumped up about that part of things.
I can see.
Yeah.
Well, actually, for everyone who's listening, we did it just a recent show on church history and why you should study church history with Dan Egan, episode 155. So go back and listen to that too, because again, it's really good to study church history. And basically, I think I might have said, or I said close to what you said, you just get puffed up and you want to learn more. And I mean, Brother Sam, everyone's the same way. It's just you get kind of addicted to it in a good way. You know what I mean? You get addicted to alcohol and that's a bad thing. But you kind of get addicted and you don't want to stop and you want to keep learning about stuff. And I take it just real quickly to you too. I take it when you're at Rome, when you're looking at the Vatican, when you're looking at the Colosseum, you're looking at the replica of Charlotte Torn, no matter how long you are there for, Jay, quote me if I'm wrong, but you always wish you had more time there. In my way.
Yes, that is true. Where it's kind of interesting. Where I was at after 5 days, so it was just Jack and I there. So two guys walking around town. We covered a lot of ground. We seen a lot in a very short period of time.
Sure.
And after 5 days, I was kind of done. Remember, we stayed right in the heart of the city, so we've seen a lot. I wouldn't mind going back, but I came home and I spent some time with myself just kind of processing what I just seen and then reviewing my notes because I journaled when I was there.
Sure.
And that's important too. But would I like to go back and see it again? Yeah. But at that time, 5 days was enough right there.
Okay.
You know, another one of the highlights is Jack had some special connection, and we got to do a mass down in the crypt, which is the basement to St. Peter's. There's a full basement of St. Peter's. I had no idea. So there's the high altar up above that you can see in YouTube videos and whatnot. Directly below the high altar in the basement is the remains of St. Peter. In that basement, they have a variety of chapels, very similar to what we're sitting in here, just kind of a knockout area in the basement. They have a chapel there. Jack and myself and 4 other people and a priest got to have a mass probably about 12 feet from St. Peter's remains. Now, at the time, it really didn't affect me. But when I came home and thought about that, it was like, how many out of the 1.4 billion Catholics on the face of this earth, how many people get that opportunity? And I'm like, it was just stuff like that. But then a half hour later, I'm standing there looking at the Pieta. And then a half hour after that, I'm standing in the Sistine Chapel. And then, and it was like that every day we were there. And it was just, it was so much to take in. And at some point, it's like, you know, when you go to China buffet, you can only go back with a plate so many times and you're full. And that's kind of where I was at. I was kind of full.
Okay.
And, but I wouldn't mind going back and seeing some of the countryside in Italy and whatnot. But when they say all roads lead to Rome, they're not joking. You can see in that city, that was the heartbeat of the world at one point.
Yeah.
And people from all walks of life there. But anyway.
Yeah. So make sure folks you have it on your bucket list to go see, because it's
Well worthwhile.
exactly. So real quickly, Jay, I know you want to talk about, well, and plus, well, first of all, I don't know if I have thanked you about coming on the show yet, so thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. You can take me aside anytime after mass or whatever and say, yeah, yeah. But with that being said, we can talk about your business that you want to talk about, and I mean, I'm glad to promote it on the show free of charge because you came on the show. So what do you do and how can people find you?
Well, so I've sold construction equipment since 2002. Supported my family. At the time, my wife was a stay-at-home mom. We were able to raise 4 kids, and it paid the bills, and it was good. I always say I had some of the best customers a sales guy could ever ask for. And how do you know what a good customer is? When you screw up as a sales guy, they cut you some slack.
Sure.
And I had customers that hey, you missed this number, this and that, and they would they'd cut me some slack, which is huge, So I had really good customers. I had no, this is about the time I got back from Rome. I had no intention of switching jobs, switching careers, anything like that. I was very happy with where I was at, but I did the Exodus 90 program and was kind of praying for some discernment on a few things, and then went to Rome. And then I did the walk to Mary out in Wisconsin, which if you haven't done that, that's pretty interesting. You walk from where Relevant Radio's broadcast out to Our Lady of Champion.
Okay.
So that's in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But so I'd done a couple things, and then things at my work started changing. And it just little things weren't setting with me as well. Things that never used to bother me were suddenly bothering me, and I couldn't shake it. And I prayed about it, and then little ideas would come to be about maybe this is my calling to do something different. And then so I prayed about possibly starting my own business, but I wasn't sure how it would work out. And then I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm kind of thick-headed. If you want me to do something, you need to make it pretty clear. And as time went on, it just became more and more obvious that I had to make a major change. I tell people are like, how did you know it was time to quit your job? Because I had kind of consulted with some other people, and they're like, don't quit your job. That's a very good job. A lot of perks, lots of benefits. It was a good job. Yeah. Towards the end there, it was like an elephant sitting on my chest. I had to do something. I couldn't not stay there. If I had chose to stay there, it would have been like directly disobeying the good Lord. And I didn't want to be in that spot. Right. And I was scared. Seeing the fruits of that about a year and a half later of that decision to go on my own and start my own business, the next time the Lord calls me to do something big, it was a big career change. I did the same thing for like 21 years. It was a big change. The next time the Lord asks me to do something drastic, I won't be nearly as scared or nervous because I know it's going to shake out. Yeah, and it's just proved that. So basically now instead of selling equipment, I just go around and I teach operator training, training operators. And I've always enjoyed wrenching on stuff. So I teach a little service and a little bit of maintenance. And it's not that I'm teaching operators or people that work on this stuff anything they couldn't figure out on their own. The workforce is so short on good workers right now, and the people they're hiring don't have skills to do some basic maintenance on equipment. And I tell people it's not their fault. It's not their fault they grew up in an apartment and maybe played video games for fun for most of their life. Nobody ever took the time to teach them how to do some of this stuff. And that's the niche that I found. And like I said, business has exceeded my expectations. It's been good. There again, I got great customers. And what that has done is that's given me some freedom to help out KS Radio, be in a stewardship committee, help out Relevant Radio, do podcasts, at 11:30 on a Monday morning, and some of this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's been really good. Thank you for asking about it. And
What's the name of the business?
Northern Safety LLC. And it's a little bit generic because if you have a training question, I want to come to your workplace and kind of see exactly what we're talking about, what you need training on to make sure I'm qualified to do that. I have had to say no a couple times. And yeah. One interesting thing is I got into the Indian reservations up north.
Okay.
They want to train more and more of their own people to be qualified on different pieces of equipment, and that's been pretty rewarding. It's interesting, some of the skill level of your students and whatnot, but I tell you, you walk away, I've never felt more appreciated. They really appreciate the time to come up there and take the time to train them. It's interesting. It's interesting. So,
and I mean, they like to have, they own do stuff, get the stuff done. And so I mean, that is great that they are so welcome you with open arms, and so appreciate that you come all that way up to show them. Because, I mean, folks, I took a class last week of Jay's, and I thought it was pretty rewarding, and that was just like 1 hour. And I know you said you need more time, but that was a great. So yeah, Northern Safety
LLC.
Northern Safety LLC. Yeah. So make sure you contact Jay if you need something to train or be worked on. Now to show you how to work on it, I should say.
That's right. Can I work on stuff? Yes, I can. I'd rather teach you how to work on stuff. And that comes from the Bible. Is it better to give a man a fish or teach a man to fish? And that's that's kind of what I model my business on. I'd rather show you how to do it safely. Can I do it? Yeah. I don't need any more experience running a skid loader. I'm good. I'd like to teach you how to do it safely and switch attachments and hydraulics and some of the basics of that kind of stuff. And we're not going to get into that too much here because this is Catholic Table Talk.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
okay. So just kind of wrapping up the show here, Jay. I know we talked about everything that you want to talk about. Mary's ACC, Stewardship, KS, Revelant Radio. Talked about your family, your business. Anything that we left out? Anything you want to talk a little bit more about, Tom? We got a few more minutes. Otherwise, yeah, I'll let you lead.
Sure. Yes. Everybody's in a different spot who's listening to this. One of the things I did a couple of years ago, I've done the Exodus 90 program, which is really good. It's not easy. Most things good aren't easy. I spend about an hour a day in prayer. Not perfect. Sometimes it's broke up in little 5-minute sections. Sometimes I can do it all in one shot, but about an hour a day in prayer. And that's been really good. I find it very relaxing.
Okay.
And I kind of got turned on through Relevant Radio to a gentleman by the name of Dave Durand. Dave Durand, if you enjoy talking about business and enjoy talking about making money and learning how to make money, and you want more than just a job and a paycheck, and like learning about finances, Dave Durand is great. And his thing is, you don't have to be a good Catholic and a bad businessman. You don't have to be a good businessman and a bad Catholic. He said, if you're a good Catholic, which there is no such thing, but just play along with me here. If you're a good businessman, you should also be a good Catholic, because the virtues you learn being a good Catholic will help you in business. Well, Jay, give me some examples. Tom Monahan, who started Domino's Pizza, very devout Catholic, sold his business and started Ave Maria University down in Florida. People don't notice he was a devout Catholic. Vince Lombardi, the Lombardi Trophy, very devout Catholic, served Mass the day after winning the Super Bowl. They were short Mass servers. He got up and served Mass. Very devout. Went to Mass every single day. If you enjoy learning about that stuff, Dave Durand is great. He's on Relevant Radio. You can listen to his podcasts and stuff like that, but very into taking your time, your talent, your treasure, your faith, your job, and just tying them all together. There's room for all this stuff. You just got to figure out how to tie them all together. And I guess my point is, my hour a day in prayer, I've kind of learned how to do that, get those things to fit together. And I'm just getting rolling. I'm only a couple years into this, but I'm pretty excited to see where it's going to lead and what's next.
Right. Well, and your witness to it is really, really eye-opening and really what people need to hear it too. So I thank you for that, because that's what.
You're welcome. Appreciate it. Very humbling.
Jay Tyrell, again, thank you. I guess we'll quick thank you again for coming on the show, and we're glad to have you back sometime.
You bet. Looking forward to it, Billy. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jay Tyrell, and we'll get his business up on the thumbnail too on this episode. We can get that for free advertisement. I'm sure you'll like that, Jay. So yeah, again, reach out to your parish, reach out to your pastor if you have not done, again, do stewardship. If you're not having support your local radio stations, Catholic radio, if you have them. If not, try to get one. And yeah, just kind of take what Jay said to mind and pray on it, and see what the Lord will call you to do as well. No matter, again, if you live in Texas, if you live in California, this is great stuff that y'all could really use. So again, thank you for your time. We'll see you next week on Catholic Table Talk podcast. Stay in the state of grace, go to the sacraments as often as you can, and spend time in prayer as much as you can too every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.